The reading today is from Joyous Living, Living Creatively by Peter Wells and Christian Sorensen. Alchemy is about the changing base metals into gold. It is about changing the basics into the golden experience. One is in awe when catching a glimpse or having an experience of the infinite. With this vision, there will be a shift. Life never fits back into the constraints of the previous container or consciousness. When in awe, you are grace-filled. You have been given the cherished and mystical alchemic ingredient. Everything it touches has the potential to turn to gold. Are you ready for your world to be so bright? So if you can just now take these words into that inner sanctuary for a few moments. So thank you, Father, Mother, God, Infinite Spirit, is how much we are so loved in this present moment. And knowing that God's infinite energy just moves through us, as us, and around us. That there is absolutely no way to be separate from this power. We are imbued with it down to our DNA. And so I know that this service is in that power. It is in that love and light and energy that has been created with all of us coming together. And so I know that our band plays perfectly, effortlessly, and easily. And that the words that Reverend Cece says are absolutely perfect. Just divine order and divine right action as we hear what needs to be heard. And that our children's church is absolutely just of peace and love and play. And so I know that all is well. And I say thank you, thank you, thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.
So I'll warn you right up front, today is Audience Participation Day. You may be called on. About 2 years ago, I think, maybe 3, we spent the whole year on a book called The Alchemy of Sacred Living. And we talked about the magical transformations that happen when we let our spiritual practices transform the very base of us. When we let our base, quote-unquote, characteristics be transformed into higher attributes through spiritual practice. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about alchemy today, specifically about that sorcerer's stone that comes up in some of the alchemical texts. Alchemy is a really interesting thing. Historically, it started with Muslims, the Muslim magicians, and they actually laid the foundation for modern chemistry. And then a little bit, you might hear about alchemy as the seeking to turn lead into gold. But more than that, it was about, later on, it was about the alchemist being transformed. The person who was, reading these mystical texts about taking this elixir and transforming lead into gold. What it was really about was transforming the person themselves into a spiritually powerful person, into a person who would stand in their spiritual power and do the right thing, and thereby changing their lives and the world. And this month we're talking about living creatively, and the two are very much linked, I think. First we talked about freeing our creativity, and then we talked about letting that creative urge take us places we hadn't ever been before. And not just to follow our rational thinking, but to follow our soul's urging, that urging that takes us into those deeper places. And so what does alchemy have to do with that? Well, as the reading said, it's about changing our everyday experiences into golden experiences, into higher, more refined experiences, into divine experiences. And there is a secret ingredient, there is a catalyst of some sort that lets our creativity expand so powerfully that it moves us to places we've never been before. It moves us into a higher plane of living, into a way of life that we haven't yet experienced. Because we can only get so far with our heads alone, our logic, our thinking alone, and then we have to be moved by this inner creative force. And so we're going to talk today a little bit more about how that, in one instance in which that happens. This catalyst, according to the alchemists, was the sorcerer's stone. In medieval writings, there are lots of recipes for it. You take mercury and this and that and the other thing and heat him up and then bury him in a hill of dung for 15 months and then, all kinds of weird stuff like that. The whole point of it is that some people took the writings very literally, just like some people take every text of any type of mystical writing literally. And they actually tried those things to try to get gold from lead. But really it was an allegory. It was an allegory. This philosopher's stone is anything that sparks our spiritual transformation into being. And today's reading says that one of those things, one of those catalysts, is this state called awe. One is in awe when catching a glimpse or having an experience of the infinite. With this vision, there will be a shift. Life never fits back into the constraints of the previous container of consciousness. Or as Oliver Wendell Holmes said, you can't, a mind once stretched can't go back to its prior proportions. It just doesn't happen. So I was thinking about awe. It's a hard thing to define. So I looked it up, and a dictionary definition said it's either an overwhelming state of reverence or an overwhelming state of dread. Well, I don't think the people who wrote the journal were thinking about dread. They were thinking about that thing that transforms us. And so I found another definition I quite like. Awe is an overwhelming and bewildering sense of connection with a startling universe that is usually far beyond the narrow band of our consciousness. I like that one. It is an overwhelming and bewildering sense of connection with a startling universe that is usually far beyond the narrow band of our consciousness. Pretty good, I think. That blurring of the lines between you and everything else is a little bit startling. that experience of oneness with everything is an experience of the startling nature of the universe. You ever had that kind of experience? Those of you who aren't raising your hands, I want you to think again. Or if you're good, because I think we all have those experiences a lot. It's just sometimes we want to call them something else. We forget them sometimes, particularly if they happen in dreams. I don't know about you, but I don't remember any of my dreams unless I wake up in the middle of them. And that hardly ever happens because I sleep I sleep hard, let me put it that way. My sister once came to my apartment and was throwing rocks at the air windows and woke up everybody in the apartment building except me. I slept through it. She had to go stay with my mother because I wouldn't let her in. So, I have dreams and I don't remember them. But if I have a big dream, a numinous dream, a dream that takes me out of my regular reality, over the course of the next couple of days, pieces will come back to me and I'll know that something big happened in my sleep. And over that next couple of days, I know what it was ultimately and that I'm changed by it. Some of them are so short that they're easy to overlook. Like you've probably had moments where it seemed like the boundaries of your skin dissolve for just a second. You know, you're one with the tree, you're hugging, or whatever it is. And they're easy to overlook. Or you look at a flower or a rock and you see its light. Dreams and those moments are really ripe for awe-inducing experiences, because they're moments when the subconscious mind is awake and active, and the subconscious mind is our link to the mind, the common, what Jung called the collective consciousness, or what our founder Ernest Holmes calls the mind of God. Our subconscious is the link to that, and we have access to all the startling wisdom of the universe in those moments, and it is startling. It is startling. When our subconscious forges that link, we're suddenly connected to something far outside the boundaries of our normal, rational, day-to-day consciousness. Another really ripe place for that is that it's called the hypnagogic state, if you're interested in such words. It's that state right before you fall asleep. Your subconscious mind is very active, and you can have sudden jolts of insight. You can see things that some people call hallucinations. There's something there that's outside our ordinary waking consciousness in that state. And, you're just sort of floating, and then all of a sudden you know something that you don't know how you knew. No, you don't know how you know it. You just know it. That might be just one of those momentary experiences as well. But they're startling. They're startling to us because they're different. They are states different. Sometimes they happen in deep prayer or meditation. They happen all the time, and we just don't become aware of them all the time. Once we start remembering them, the funny thing that seems to happen is we start to have more of them. We start to have more awe, experiences that inspire awe. We can't make them happen, we can only make ourselves available to them. And some we forget, some we chalk up to something else. Like I was talking to someone recently, and he said, I thought I was coming down with the flu. I said, no, it's just one of those experiences. You feel a little bit not normal because you're not in your normal everyday mind. But we always try to come up with a rational explanation. I'm trying to think of near-death experiences is a good example. Scientists try to claim that all that happens, that sense of connection with something larger, and that sometimes seeing people who've made the transition before we did. Scientists are always trying to say it's just the chemicals in the brain. But I don't buy that, because you can have that same experience in meditation. You can have that same loss of gravity, I guess I'd call it, in states other than almost dying. It seems to be a universal experience, the sense that we are one with something infinite, and that it loves us, whatever it is, whether it's the light at the end of the tunnel or a presence, whatever you call it. We can experience it in all sorts of ways. And we experience it sometimes in meditation, and sometimes in deep prayer, and sometimes just walking down the street. We have what some people call visions. And they're real experiences, and they're very common if we will let ourselves realize it. They are reminders to us, I think, that we are part of something greater, and that we're hooked to that something greater, and that it's always present for us. It's always in us. It's always around us. So what I want to do is tell you my awe-inspiring story, and then I'm going to bring the mic out there so that if you want to tell everybody about one of yours, you can. No pressure, I promise I won't call on anyone. This is the earliest adult experience. I had lots of things happen when I was a kid, but the earliest adult experience I can remember happened like almost 30 years ago now. I was really, really struggling at the time. I was clinically depressed and I didn't know it. I was new in recovery from alcoholism, so my brain was fried. Wasn't working so good. I was struggling with my avowed atheism in light of the spiritual urgings I was having. I was a mess. And wanted to just run away somewhere. And one day I was sitting in meditation and I was just asking the question, what do I do now? What do I do now? And all of a sudden I had what I call a vision. I don't know what else to call it. I was on the edge of a cliff at Dead Horse Point in Utah. If any of you have ever been there, it's 2,000 feet from the top of the cliff down to the Colorado River. And I was just standing there looking down, and something, a gust of wind or something, blew me off the edge. And I was falling and I was terrified. And right before I was, getting close to the bottom, something like a very large, very warm, very gentle hand caught me and set me down. And I actually heard, I haven't brought you this far to let you fall. I heard it as clear as a bell. And that experience with this startling universe changed everything for me. It changed everything. I knew that I was part of this creative life and that I didn't have to keep living the same way anymore. I knew that I could do something different, and I started doing something different in that moment. I've had other experiences like that, and every one has made me appreciate my life so much. Made me appreciate this amazing universe so much, made me remember that I am of the divine, that my very life is golden. Same is true for every one of us, every single one of us. So who's willing to share one of their experiences? Michelle.
Of course you know. One of my life-changing experiences was when I was actually, I had been killed, and I had not been a very good person at the time. I had been told that I'm going to hell, and because of my practice at the time, because I was practicing witchcraft, and I was actually murdered, and I was strangled to death. And I experienced, for a fact, my consciousness slip out of my body, stop struggling, and I felt and saw and knew for a fact that there is only life. That there's only life, because I was awake and I was aware of the presence that I was in front of and how it loved me, and I felt more peace. It was amazing, and that told me right there and then there's only life. There's only life, and it loves me, and it was amazing.
Fabulous. Come on, don't be so shy.
I know. I'll go with the earliest one. I was 7 and I died. And I left my body. I saw my family crying. My dad had gone to go get the faith healer, Cy. And Cy walked in the room, put his hands on me, and all of a sudden I was meeting all the people on the other side. And then I saw them all stop, and there was like a soiree, some sort of conference going on. And they were discussing things, and then they came back and said, their two lighted beings came back and said, you need to go back because you're not supposed to be here right now. You're supposed to be living. And so I went back into my body, and it was like my whole body was on fire, and Cy was almost screaming this prayer, and I saw him talking to those angels. And another one is, oh my God, there's so many. I was driving in a mountain road in Idaho, and there were two, the hairpin curves in these roads are very dangerous. And there was a big lumber truck in front of me, and those things cannot stop easily. And something happened, some of the logs started falling off, and I saw coming from the other side facing us another lumber truck coming. And I went, oh my God, because I couldn't stop either. I thought, I'm going to die. And previously to that, I'd been singing my favorite song at the time when I'm driving hairpin curves, is God is so beautiful. And I just prayed, and I said, I know, I'll just place this all in divine hands. And when I opened my eyes again, in the rearview mirror, I saw the 2 trucks. They were fine, and I was fine.
Cool. Wow.
Stuff like that happens all the time. Anybody else have an experience of like losing your boundaries or being one with the light or anything like that? Marge?
I can share a rather recent experience where I think for some time I felt very comfortable with moving from one consciousness to the next, whatever that was going to be. But recently I had the opportunity where I kept stopped breathing, and every time I stopped breathing, I was slipping into something that was, I can only liken it to molten gold. It was beautiful, and it was warm, and it was embracing. And then I would hear my daughter's voice, "Mom, Mom, Mom," and I thought, why does she keep calling me back? Because whatever I'm going to is so absolutely wonderful. And so I felt a confirmation of what I had come to believe, rationally and on a higher level as well. But it totally confirmed for me that there is something that is infinitely peaceful and loving that we belong to and that we move into and is there for us.
And we're in it right now. That was a bad medication, wasn't it? Yeah. I remember that. Jeff?
Mine's not as possibly profound as the other ones, but it's every time I travel over into the Alps, and I'm very grateful I can do that every so many years. But I even just showed a picture of the nature, the beauty of the nature, and every time I'm there, the overwhelming feeling of being home, and that it's like I live there. The way I can go around and view nature and come up to these points where the scenery is just so overtaking, and it could be the simplest thing, but it's just like I've been there all my life, and it's amazing feeling.
Yeah, there's something about being in nature that sometimes you'll just, I don't know, you walk through the forest and all of a sudden you can feel the life of the trees. Or you can understand that there's something going on here that's enormous, and it's because we're all knitted together inextricably, all of life, with the bugs and the trees and the soil and the rocks and all of it. And we're all knitted together in this one that we call God. And it loves us now, and it loves us no matter what state we're in. And this experience is the philosopher's stone as far as creativity, because those kinds of experiences let us know that we're connected with something amazing and powerful and creative and wonderful and light-filled and life-filled. So that's what changes us, I think, in those moments. That's what changes us, is that it's a real physical experience of our oneness with this startling universe, with this startling creative power that we live in, and that make us realize that everything leading up to that point, every experience we had, was golden because it got us where we are. And every experience we're going to have next is golden because of who we are. Because of who we are. And so the reading asks us, are you ready for your life to be that bright? Are you ready for your life to be that golden? Are you ready to have every experience in your life be like a flame that ignites your creativity, that ignites your willingness to grow, your willingness to expand, your willingness to open your heart? Because that's what we need, I think, and that's why we're here. That's why all of us are here at this particular moment, because there's a great Howard Thurman quote that said, the world doesn't need more bankers or or whatever you want to say. What the world needs is more people who are alive and awake to who they are. More people whose hearts are open. More people who are willing to go and see something and say, you know, that just doesn't work for me. Whether it's poverty or disenfranchisement or disillusionment or anger or fear or lack of love or lack of compassion, to look at it and say, that doesn't work for me. I am going to change it. I'm going to start by changing me. I'm going to start by opening my heart. I'm going to start by learning how to be compassionate in every single thing I do. I'm going to start by unleashing the creative power of my mind to change me. And I'm going to let it just flow out of me. Because that's what creates this thing that Jesus talked about as heaven on earth. It's here already, and all we have to do is step into it by being it. By allowing it to flow through us and allowing us to use that power to create these little golden places that pretty soon start to join together until the whole world is golden. I think that's why we're here. I really do. So I invite you to just pay attention to those moments of unusual nature that happen to you in your life, whether they're, I don't know, I have a temple cat. Maybe you do too. Sometimes my cat will be sitting there and I can see the light coming out of his fur almost, you know? And sometimes I can look at a flower and see that, and certainly I can see it in your faces and in your eyes and in the changes that you go through and in all that you do, and it's good. It's really good. And when we let those experiences open us and open our hearts and move us into that golden place, we change everything. Change everything. So let's join together in awareness and in consciousness right now. Just take a breath. As we remember that there's only one life, there's only one power, there's only one presence. We call it God. It goes by 10,000 names because every culture and every person experiences a little tiny bit different angle of this one we call God. Yet it is all life and all love and all power and all wisdom and all joy and all abundance and all health and all peace. It is infinite, unconditional love. And it is that which has created everything that exists, has poured itself into its creation, so that by seeming to divide, it knows itself. It knows itself by means of you and you and you and you and me and everything. And so we are the place that its divine wisdom and love can show up in the world. As Mother Teresa said, we are the hands and we are the hearts and we are the voice of God right where we are. So as we rest in that truth, I simply know for all of us that we accept that like never before in a visceral sort of way, and that we experience those moments of connection and oneness with all that is as catalysts for more creativity, for greater love, for a bigger embrace of this world, for a bigger heart for life. I know this is just who we are, and I know that it's already happening as we speak, and so I give thanks. I give thanks for this community. I give thanks for this time of celebration and reflection. I give thanks for life itself, this journey of discovery, of uncovering of the truth of ourselves. And from this place of gratitude, I just let go. I release these words knowing that in the mind of God, they are already so. I let them be, and we acknowledge together, and so it is.